I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still.
I don't care if it's Muhammad, Imard, Bruce Lee.
And Steve Newby.
This is the original Five Fingers of Death right here.
But my hands are registered as lethal weapons. That means we get into a fight, I accidentally kill you, I go to jail.
This is true. Hi guys, welcome to podcast 18 of the Kung Fu Podcast. My name's James Still. I'm joined by the teacher in Mountie country, across those British Columbian skies. Mr. Steve Newby, how are you doing?
Hi. Still locked down.
Still on lockdown.
Not as bad as you. I can still go out.
I can go out. I can just walk around my garden, and I've got to have an excuse to have a picnic and all the rest of it. So, yeah, no, guys, we've had some news this week.
Yeah, we have. We've been caught out.
we've been well and truly exposed for the frauds we are. It turns out that we made a massive mistake last time on the podcast, on podcast 17, when we had the audacity to suggest that basically the pagoda Mr. Newby was talking about 7 minutes into podcast 17 was the wrong pagoda.
Well, no, it was a pagoda with a current abbot in 2001. Now I don't know whether it was full, whether there was an abbot in it, or whether it was built for the new abbot. I assumed it was being built for the abbot waiting to pop his socks,
right?
And that's why I mentioned it.
Listen, so I have it from a very reliable listener, a very reliable listener who has kindly informed me with this message. 7 minutes in, you confused the pagoda with the former stand-in abbot Zi and the current abbot Shi Yong Zin. Okay, so we obviously got our pagodas mixed up.
Yeah,
so,
but can I? Sorry, can I just confirm though that there's the information about the fact that he's got businesses in 40 countries and that is the current abbot.
That's the current abbot. Yes.
So what the bloody hell difference does it make what pagoda we're talking about?
Listen.
I apologise intensely that I saw a pagoda and assumed it was the abbot in waiting. Perhaps it was the older abbot, and or maybe it was full of abbot. I haven't got a clue.
There was a guy called Russ. Did you see Russ? He was there as well. Oh, sorry, I used to watch him as a kid.
We can't make light of when we're wrong.
That's true.
I apologise intensely that I may have led thousands of listeners, both of them, and into believing that the pagoda was built for a particular abbot.
Okay. Now, it's worth me saying that this avid listener has pointed out our mistake, but he posted on our Facebook and then immediately removed the comment. So I don't know why he did that, but
maybe he just wanted to send you a message, but hasn't got your email.
Maybe. So I thought I'd put together a little tune to express my deepest condolences for getting these facts right and being a party to you getting these facts right, because it wasn't my fault, but I feel I have to take responsibility because I am the presenter. So here's my present to you.
It's your fault.
Bud Light presents Real Men of Genius. Real Men of Genius.
furious.
Today we salute you, Mr. Post a comment on Facebook, then deletes it.
Mr. Post a comment on Facebook, then deletes it.
Because of your tireless typing efforts, we now know the true pagoda of the abbot. We also know who you are.
You can't hide from us now.
Tirelessly you perfect your deadly keyboard artistry, waiting to pounce on us when we get it wrong.
You need a hobby now.
Because what you do when you have absolutely no talent whatsoever is troll someone who does.
I'm a great big troll, yeah.
So crack open an ice-cold Bud Light on us, you old fearsome Facebook raider. Because when it comes to martial arts, you put the Kung Flu in Kung Fu. Bud Light Beer on Anheuser-Busch in Louis, Missouri. Listen, he's a real man of genius. Anyway, listen.
You are a troublemaker. That's what you are. You're a troublemaker.
I don't know where I get it from, old man. I don't know where I get it from. Anyway, we must press on with business. Let's talk about something technical. What say you? Have you any suggestions?
Me and technical. I've been waiting on more questions for people to send, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We were going to talk about, you know, the poll and stuff like that. This is one of the biggest, you know, things that I hate about when people are learning to poll. Yeah. And there have been some videos made, obviously, regarding, you know, instruction of, you know, the syllabus and so on. And obviously, when you look at them, you've got to decide for yourself whether you think that they're correct or not. And you know, there are many things that I disagree with. When obviously, when you see videos, people make videos all the time, and I do understand that when you do a video, you are judged by that specific video from then on. From then on, they don't believe that 10 years after the video was made, you've actually progressed, and so on and so forth. You know, just that's life. But when you make the video, you're going to have some idea of what you're doing, and otherwise don't make a video. Yeah. But of course, when you do things and you make the odd mistake, as long as you can sort of say, oh, you know, that was a mistake, you can always update videos as well. You can always take them off and do them again. Yeah. So it's the same when people write books. I remember I went to a Tai Chi course in Scotland, in Dunoon, and it was a great course. There's lots and lots of different Tai Chi people from all over Scotland, and they all, you know, there's a couple of them have written books, and one of them was doing a talk kind of at the end, and he says, you know, I wrote this book, and he says it's complete trash. You know, and the reason being is he obviously knew that what he knew then when he wrote the book, and he thought he knew everything, was different to what he knew as he started to, you know, learn a little bit more, digest it a bit a few years later. And that's of course the same with everybody when they write books and when they you know, perform instructional videos. Well, at least most.
Yeah, so you know, obviously I don't know where these things are going, but now you've sort of mentioned that, what I want to bring up is a big sort of bane in my in my thoughts, and that is of Bruce Lee, right? Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, like most people getting into martial arts, we see Bruce Lee, we get inspired and all the rest of it. But you see, for me, when you talk about what I knew when I was younger as opposed to what I knew when I was older, I kind of think that Bruce Lee had good innings, didn't he? I mean, you know, but I say good innings. He did a lot with the time he had. That's what I mean. But he did die relatively young, didn't he? So he never got to experience the martial arts as an older person, if you like. Yeah. And I kind of think all the books he wrote, Jeet Kune Do, Tao Jeet Kune Do, and all the rest of it, and his kind of attitude towards martial art may have turned around in later life. I don't know, but I'm left with a sort of sour taste in my mouth with Bruce Lee, because simultaneously I think he is probably the most important thing to happen to martial arts in the 20th century, but also the biggest detriment at the same time, because he sort of contributed to the what do they call
proliferation
it?
of stupidity.
Yeah, and the dissolvement
But that's
of
not
martial art.
Yeah, that's not his fault. You know, you can't blame him for that.
I'm not blaming him. I'm just saying he maybe had something to do with it.
Well, obviously his influence had a lot to do with it, but you influence, you know, now if you're in a position of, you know, some, whether it's notoriety or power or whatever you want to call it, some responsibility, you're always going to influence people, but how those people respond to the influence is down to them. You know, you can have people who respond stupidly, and you can have people who respond with a great respect, and you know, but that's not the person who, you know, is in that position. It's not their fault. I think it just simply means that there are a lot of real weird and wonderful people in the world. That's all.
But I mean, you know. I mean, like, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Bruce Lee started off with Kung Fu, you know, and then he sort of he did a U-turn, a 180, and dived off a bloody, you know, mountain, and ended up with Jeet Kune Do, you know, because... Is it because he didn't understand the principles of his Kung Fu? Which I find very hard to believe, because he wrote such eloquent books. Yeah.
Yeah, I think his books are great, and I think he was just trying to put everything into a single category, really, to make it fightable. It's like saying, you know, do Kung Fu, but I prefer kickboxing. It's the same thing, but kickboxing per se didn't exist when he was around. You know, it kind of developed around that time, and you know, full contact kickboxing and so on became obviously a popular thing. Semi-contact. Yeah. I mean, you did, you know, points fighting, karate, and that sort of thing, but semi-contact, you know, kickboxing, or you know, especially the way Lau does it, and you know, and obviously all the other styles followed suit now. That didn't exist at that time, and I think you know, to see those things proliferate around the world, you know, he never got to see that kind of thing, and maybe it's just he tried to, but really I think his sort of concept was to try to put a fighting into a teacup, you know, make it all easy to learn, just use the simplest things and use the things that work. But isn't that what most martial arts, well, call them enthusiasts, but people who don't, you know, continue with a style or develop a style or are dedicated to a style, they tend to do that. I mean, we're referring really to not just fighters of like MMA and that, but we're referring to really just general everybody who tends to cross train. And you know my attitude to cross training. If I use that, I can then use that to do this and that to do that, and I can learn judo to throw people and learn jiu-jitsu to sit on their face, and then I can, you know, learn taekwondo to kick people in the head, and do karate to power punch, you know, and yet if they stayed with a style that was genuine, an authentic style that was true to itself and that was obviously workable, eventually they would learn all those things. They wouldn't have to go off on a tangent anywhere, because you can you can use a technique for anything, as we've already explained. And a lot of styles and teachers, because it's not just about the styles probably started out quite well, but and probably in some areas it's still probably very good, and even they sort of just slap themselves on the head when they look at other people, you know, doing their particular style. They just go, for God's sake, you know, what's he trying to tell people? And of course, you know, all these people just end up doing all sorts of different things that really, you know, with not just the styles, but the teachers start to go off on tangents in all kinds of different directions, and end up with the style doesn't even exist anymore, because they choose one thing or another. But I'm sure that's probably happened in history as well, you know, where you've got lots of different proliferations of Shaolin styles anyway. I mean, 5 straight away to our knowledge.
And then that turned into so many, it's like, you know, branching off and everything. And
because of people. What is a style? Let's explain what a style is. It's a preference, a person's preference. Whoever learns enough to be able to control or dominate the arena, or you know, the learning arena or the fighting arena, whatever, it becomes his way of doing things, right? Everyone accepts him as or her as that's the way you do things. So that's what a style is. So when you look at karate, is a great example. Originally, karate was just called, guess what? Karate. Okay.
Yeah.
And then it became, oh, wait a minute, let's do Wadaru karate. Oh, we do Shotokan karate. We do Goju-Ryu karate. We do, all these different bloody things. And all they are is different people's opinions. So there is, in the end, only one style. It's just the way people teach it in with different preferences, and of course depending on their size, their preference.
Is there a preference for the build of a person in Chinese martial arts? What I mean is, like, if you're talking about martial science, and generally we'll always talk about speed, right? Because that power is relative, speed is absolute. It makes no sense for you to try and compare your power with another person, because it's never going to be the same. But speed as a concept, not just speed in technique, but speed in thought, process planning, whatever you want to call it, that is a definitive sort of basis for a science we've got now. When we look at different sized people, is it fair to say that if you've got a big person, say, I mean, let's just look at the history of Lao, right? Let's assume that the monk, Lao San Lao, the tiger hunter who was taught Lao, was of small stature. Let's just assume it. We don't know it, but let's just assume it. Now, because he's of small stature, he has to emphasize a lot more of a speed-based system. Whereas, what if he was a huge lump of a bloke? How different do you think Lao would be in terms of the the scientific principles we operate under?
Yeah, well, on that basis, perhaps we can look at the founder of Hong, the tea merchant, was a strong person. And because it seems to me that his style is based a lot more on strength and power than, say, the guy who did Lao Ga, devised Lao Ga. So it is interesting to sort of contemplate that. And as you say, we will never know. In most history, except in the case of abbots, we
don't mention abbots.
We don't know. Okay, we do not know. So it is just a matter. It's a matter of conjecture, isn't it? So, and it's an interesting factor. So,
but being that it is a matter of conjecture, would you then suggest that there is an ideal sort of body size or type to be studying martial arts?
No.
Do you know what I mean in terms of the original?
Yes, but that's exactly what we're talking about. Styles. When you talk about styles, people will have different preferences. A heavier guy will do far more punching kind of techniques and strong stances and so on. A smaller person is going to do as much as he can within the range he's got. Kind of a lot more technique to be faster, because he's got to be faster. He's got to close the gap that's left between his arm and the longer guy's arm. He's got the shorter sword, hasn't he? He's got the shorter stick, so he's not going to be able to take the fight so easily unless he can get inside. So all his strategy and technique has got to be, what's he going to do once he gets inside? So it's a difficult scenario. It's the same with battles. What do you do when you're confronted by a huge army, an amazing, massive army in comparison to your own? You have to use strategies that are going to be compliant with success. So we've already talked about the Battle of Agincourt, haven't we?
The one with the hill,
no, the one with the triangular field.
Don't go into that again. No, it's just. No, I thought it was an interesting premise as to does.
I think you find. I mean, it's certainly in modern times, and of course this is going to bring argument, which is what we're all about, really. When you look at a general makeup of a karate guy over the years, the successful karate guy would be a kind of a short, stocky, powerful man. Right, and then when you have like Taekwondo, you would imagine him to be a kind of a lanky, thin, not kind of really thin, but just simply a tall guy who can a great stretcher,
Yeah.
and obviously his gene pool is full of lap dancers, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than office workers.
Yeah.
So he's got a great deal of stretchability in him, a lot of flexibility.
Yeah.
And then you talk about jiu-jitsu people, and this is my opinion, and I've seen this certainly over a period of time, and this may change in different periods of time, but certainly over that I experienced over a certain time during the 80s and 90s, and that was jiu-jitsu people would be bloody big guys, because the bigger you are, the more likely you're going to be able to stop someone pulling you down or throwing you down and holding you down. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone that does these styles is of that stature. What I'm saying is, on the whole, the majority of people who are successful will be that kind of stature, unless they change the rules.
Yeah, I was going to say,
And-
it's rule dependent, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but when you talk about Kung Fu, because you can use, and you're taught to use the techniques in lots of different ways, because the techniques are so prolific, there's no real status, size, body status that you can pin down. You can have, look at Wing Chun. Wing Chun is a woman, and so she was able to, combat a much bigger person, as the legend goes. And then I say, we don't know who Lao looked like, we don't know what Hong looked like, but we know from the type of styles that they've turned out to be, that they tend to be certainly different sized people, that's for sure. And you just don't know, but from experience I can see that it doesn't tend to matter in terms of success what size a person is, or what gender for that matter. Look at Sharon Gill, how successful she was.
Yeah.
And in terms of when she participated in that thing on BBC Two, what was it called, that thing we talked
Masters
about?
of Combat, wasn't it?
Masters of Combat. She was the only girl in that, in all the different teams that participated, to actually beat the boys.
Yeah.
She was beating the boys because she had a great style and a great, strategy to coming from that style. So, she's a very good ambassador for Lao.
She's a very humble person, isn't she? She's like...
I had to sleep with her dad.
Oh, lucky you.
No, when we went to Berlin, we went to the World Championships in 1991, and we all had to share rooms, and I shared my room with her dad.
We've got a picture on our Facebook of very young Sharon Gill, haven't we? Along with
Probably
some of your, I think it was Rebecca Drury in that in a
Oh
ring.
yeah, back in
yeah. Back. But no, it's but I mean, like all this cross training thing that Bruce Lee was on about, eradicating style. He's saying that styles are bad because you shouldn't have a style. You should just have, it should just be your sort of, your ideal, if you like, of fighting or whatever.
But don't you think the reason for that is because a lot of people never got to finish the style? Because obviously it was brand new in those days. Martial arts, Kung Fu generally was brand new. So quite frankly, anybody who started to train Kung Fu for that, when they saw Bruce Lee come out in the movies and stuff, they all started training in Kung Fu wherever they could get it. The guy that was probably teaching had never, if he had at all, learned any Kung Fu, and a lot of them didn't. They just come out with a load of crap.
Yeah.
They then learned that, and of course none of them would have been able to complete a style. None of them would have been able to understand a complete style and fulfill that ambition, if you want. So what you're saying now, if you look at it today, of course you can sustain a style because you can complete the whole syllabus if you want and go through it, and then you can discover what the style has to offer in terms of the fact that it is so diverse and it isn't limited because of its being one style, whereas in those days they were limited in what they chose to do, and then they had arguments with people who chose, and then we're going back to the same situation where they, you got a big guy talking to a little guy going, well, my style's better than your style, and then they got to prove it, and then they kind of deviate and everybody changes, and that's basically what a lot of martial arts have done, and then they've come out with a name for it, and they've called it a style. So even though they don't believe in styles, they call it a style. So it's so ironic. But it's a style that has no style.
But I mean, Bruce Lee didn't finish his martial art training. You know what I mean?
No, that's true. None of them did.
No, that's my point. Like, but I mean, when you look at when you say, oh, what is a style or whatever, can we sort of say maybe that Kung Fu in general, very similar techniques across the board, if not identical, right? But
well, they would be if they were taught properly. Yes.
Yeah, there you go, right? So sort of different styles, sort of Kung Fu, going to emphasize different things. But if we're looking at a complete style, like, so for example, you might turn around and say, oh, Wing Chun, right? Oh, it's not a complete style because, and what people might say is, oh, they just do low kicks, they just emphasis on sticking hands, this, that, and the other, right? And then you look at sort of Lao Ga and you go, yeah, well, we do this, we do that, we go, da, 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 da. Now, isn't it dependent on the knowledge and the scientific principles by which the arts are taught? I mean, Christ's sake, you could take Wing Chun and you could take it in a totally different direction with your knowledge of anatomy, of logic, of science, of strategy, tactics.
Be careful when you say my knowledge of anatomy, because I don't even know where a carpet is.
You know what I mean?
But I just want to point there when you said about styles is really what we should be saying about styles is when you take a stylist, you should really be thinking you should take a person, because the person who teaches it is the one that decides on where that style goes. Right, it seems. And unfortunately, the problem there is not every individual who does it has the knowledge to do it. They just simply do it because it's either beneficial in terms of their power or their reputation, and obviously financially viable. So that's where styles have gone in today's world, is that they've gone all over the place. I think I think there's just one thing that Lao has that no other style had, right? And that is simply Master Yao. It's just about talking about one individual person who was able to teach specific technology, if you like, or technical data that everybody took on board, could see the success in what he did, could see the success, and stuck with him for many of them anyway, even to this day, over 50 years, have stuck with him. And so the style has been prolific. Of course, you've got deviations of that style, which everybody calls, Lao, or they want to call it Lao because of its reputation. And but of course, it will look totally different. And this is where we're going. Sometimes when you talk about people who have left the association, they just go off on a tangent. I've got a clue.
But forget the association now. If we're just talking about Lao Ga as a style, as a concept, as a science, or whatever. Do you feel, and here's putting you on the spot, do you feel that being in Canada, you have got the tools and the knowledge to proliferate the style?
Well, of course I do, but there's 1,000 that don't. But the thing is, it's all about the questions. I once I went to Scotland to build up the Scottish area, and I had no money, but I just went up to Scotland because I was determined to see Lao build, and I'd seen what it was like up there. They asked me to go up there for a couple of weeks holiday. As I said before, I ended up there for eight years. When I went up there, we were looking under the carpet for coins because we had absolutely no money, right? And we paid for a house that we sold our house in England and in Birmingham, and we bought a house there that was a wreck, and we had to do it up. But as we built up the students, some of those students were carpenters and roof fixers and whatever, tilers, and so the house got done because everybody sort of helped me.
Yeah.
But the point I'm saying is that during that time, because I had no money, I drove up to Edinburgh to look for an agency to drive trucks, because that's what I'd done before.
Yeah.
And I went in and I said, I need to, would you take me on as an agency, to drive any trucks, basically. They phone you up and give you a job. And I says, and they said, have you got any references? And I went, ask me a question.
Right.
That's all I did. I said, ask me a question. And then they asked me various questions about trucking and so on, and then they gave me a tachograph test and whatever, how to fill out all the books and whatever.
Yeah.
And so, I got the job, and then they gave me a brilliant reference when I eventually started to make enough to live with the Kung Fu. Now, the point I'm making is I've come over to Canada with absolutely nothing, and I've come and I've watched and studied. I've, scrutinized the martial arts around here as well as before I came over here. I looked at the martial arts and I couldn't see anything that had anything near what the information that I have. So for me, that's how I judge my ability to by others. I don't judge it by myself. I don't say I'm the greatest. What I do is I look at other people and ask me a question. That's all I have to say. Ask me a question and I'll give you an answer, and if I can give you a logical answer and it's a usable technique or a good reason, then that's fine. Whatever you do, don't ask me any bullshit about Chinese terminology and Chinese, because I'm not interested. All I'm interested in is whether the technique works and whether it doesn't, how it's done, how you practice it, and how you apply it, and that's it. I don't care what it's called. I don't care whether it's, twin dragons climb up the mountain and pull the arse off a donkey. I don't care what it's called. Don't bother me with those questions. And without any reference to that, I'm happy that I do understand the science of the Kung Fu, and I've proven it already anyway, because I've been to different styles and looked at them, and I've ended up telling them what to do.
Didn't you once tell her? Weren't you once teaching a jiu-jitsu class or something, or had a group of jiu-jitsu guys, and you were showing them the first set, and they were all like,
and they were just mesmerised. They just hadn't got a clue.
Mind you,
but that was years ago. That was in the 80s. They didn't have a clue then. They probably haven't got a clue now.
Well, I remember the first time I walked into your club in Hereford, and I sat down with you, and you said, you said, what's this? And you gestured the first move of the first set, and I went, oh. You said, is it a block? I said, yeah, it's a block. Is it a strike? I said, no. Is it this? Is it that? I said, no. And you said, it's all of those. And I went, what? You had me hooked then. But it's like, I did, that was a totally alien concept to me, because I was still in sort of, mono. I was
mono. That's good.
Do you know what I mean?
And that taught you in stereo.
Yeah, there you go. And I was like, holy shit, this is going to be interesting. And so it was, but amazing.
Isn't it about time, James, you took a grade?
I think so. What are you saying?
Well, I know that it didn't appeal to you, and you wasn't that interested at the time, and it's been 16 years since you
got my brown sash.
Yeah.
I'm still a brown sash.
You just never. Yeah.
But it never sort of. Yeah.
You've just come out, James.
Yeah, I know. Oh my goodness me. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, but when I was a brown and I was getting ready to do my black, I think I said to you, "Are you going to be on the panel?" And you said, "Oh no, I'm not going on the panel again." And I went, why? You gave. I can't remember what you said now, but you weren't going on the panel, and then I kind of lost a bit of oomph for it, because I thought, listen, I really
apologise.
No, I'm not blaming you, but the thing with me is I have such like a deep-seated respect for the technicians of Lao, Master Yao, John Russell, and the senior technicians of the style, you included. And I wanted,
that's nice.
well, you know, and what I wanted was I wanted to do my black sash with you there, not because I thought I'd be getting a free pass, but because I wanted to share that experience with you, and I wanted them to maybe remark, oh, he's all right, or whatever. Not that I would have been. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but it would have been nice. But
Yeah.
if you weren't there, then that didn't spur me on, because I thought, listen, the only person on that panel who knows me and knows my ability, other than watching the physicality, you know, would have been you. Now, I'm not saying that Bastiat, John Russell, would never have like taken in my my aesthetic ability and drawn conclusions from it. But what I'm saying is, you know me. And that's a very sort of personal relationship, and that to me is what martial arts is about. Because, you know, I did watch Kung Fu, and I appreciate the master student thing. But, you know, do you know what I mean? I have the respect for you like that, and I didn't want.
Yeah,
to be
I did. I saw things I didn't really want to be part of in terms of judging people, and I did know people that went for gradings and didn't get judged fairly. And I'm not saying that because they're my student or anything. It's just you have to take into consideration their age. You have to take into consideration their limitations
I know
as well.
exactly who you're talking about. A lovely lady in Scotland.
Yeah.
And she's very.
Yeah, she had arthritis,
Yeah.
and she I tell you what, she looked great when she did it. She did her best. She did everything she could, and she didn't flaunt anything. She did everything that she was expected to do. But you know, some of the wrist movements were difficult for her to do. But no, she did fine. And no, she didn't get treated the way that she should have been. So. I just felt it's not for me to, you know, not for me to comment about how the grading should be done. Of course, that's not my thing. It's just, I think there's a couple of people agreed with me as well, but I'm not, you know, it doesn't mean a thing. You know, I'm not that important to change anything like that. That's just the way gradings are expected to be, I guess. And but I think if you watch a young guy who's, you know, young and strong and, you know, capable of teaching or capable of, you know, going on to do all sorts of wonderful things, then you should judge him a lot more stringently, I should say. But when someone is doing it, you know, just for the prestige of getting that belt after so many years' effort, and you know that they've got certain limitations, you have to take those limitations into account. And such is life. And you know, I've seen people, young guys, that have got nowhere near as much quality as Ada had, and I don't mind mentioning her name. She's a wonderful student. And she did the Tai Chi and that, and then she ended up doing the Kung Fu. You know, following the flock.
No, you know, you do have the odd disagreement with your peers, don't you, or your superiors?
Oh yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you have an organisation where they cannot, and I'm not talking about Lao particularly. You can make your own mind up how, you know, when I talk about associations, but when you know, are in an association that cannot be questioned, if you have, you know, reservations, and you need to talk about it, and you need to change things, you need to see things are, you know, and I'm not talking about the style, I'm not talking about changing the style, I'm not talking about anything technical, I'm just talking about, you know, policies of organisation. You see, you got students who have been there many years as me as well, and they leave their jobs eventually, and they start running business. They run martial arts as a business, and it's those people that actually proliferate an association. They develop the association. They're not asking to be the head of the association. They're not asking to be, you know, made to look important. They are important because they're the ones that have brought up the majority of the members between them. And of course, when they bring up the majority of the members, they have businesses and they have families to look after. And then when you have an association that will turn around and say, wait a minute, you know, we'll tell you whether you're your subordinate student, the student who is, is stealing from you. He's back-mouthing you. He's talking badly behind your back to other students. He's trying to win over the students so he can take the club away. And then the organisation goes, oh no, you don't have a say in your business, how to run your business or how to sustain or protect your business from people like that. When that happens, you quickly lose respect, you quickly lose loyalty, you quickly lose belief. And the loyalty might stay, actually, because loyalty is left when belief is gone. And if you have all that belief in something and then suddenly some kind of methodical, decision making is set up and it completely destroys your business. Because obviously what you've got to take into consideration if you're in a situation like that is when a student, and we are talking about students who may be deflammatory, they do all sorts of stuff against you, and then they try taking clubs, and then when you can't do anything with them, remember, they can then go back to your other students and say, look, I was right all the time. I'm innocent. I didn't do anything wrong. Look, I'm still part of the association. Exactly. I'm still part of the association. So what do you think those students are going to do who have had them as their instructor?
They're going to follow
you put them in that position. You trusted them to do it, and then they became very friendly with obviously the students that you'd given them because you'd given them the club. What happens? Of course, the people are going to follow them, and they wouldn't follow them if you turn around. Wait a minute, he's just been kicked out of an association. They wouldn't follow him then. They'd just go, oh right, maybe some of them would, maybe his closest associates would, but not all the students. But when you have the guy the opportunity he goes off and he runs a club, not only does he run the club, but an organisation might say, oh well, if you just let him run his club anyway, and then you potentially end up having to teach him at a course, or you potentially having to meet him at a competition and whatever, how can you possibly show respect for your senior people if those senior people can't control their own business? That is just completely and utterly against the principle that any value that you might have, and obviously very quickly the association will fall apart, and it does. They do, and they will fall apart, because no one can say to someone, look, you can't run the business like this, or you can't run your business like this. Now, if you're doing it, all legitimately and all above board, and you're all loyal and everything, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to decide on whether you can have someone working for you, irrespective. And if that organisation doesn't support you in that, then why should you be part of that association? Why should you be part of that organisation? So that's the way associations make big mistakes.
It's funny, right? Because you look at traditional martial arts and you look at the hierarchy within, say, traditional martial art. Right. You've got the head, haven't you? The head of the style. The father, the master, if you like. Everyone else is masters in weightings, but he has the say. It's not a council. It's a direct. Sort of like a paramilitary structure, isn't it?
It's an autonomy. It's a totalitarianism.
Okay.
But so's a family. A family is a family.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like that. So it's just like a family. So But when you add when you have an organisation involved in that, and you've got council members, etc., whereby now you introduce the element of democratic. Everything's I say democratic, but everyone's going to debate and is that a detriment to the proliferation of a martial art?
No, I wouldn't suggest that it is detrimental having an organisation that can take decisions. Right. Absolutely not. But They need to take decisions based on the evidence given to them by a number of members of the council or a number of members of the hierarchy. And if they ignore obvious warnings and obvious information that needs to be addressed, and just continue on a blind path, then pretty obviously and very quickly, not only are you going to lose the belief of those members, but you're going to lose that half of the organisation through the fact that those people, remember, people do get friendly with their students, and their students will follow them, okay, blindly or what. And of course, and if they've got a genuine say, right, then such is life. An organisation means nothing without its members. An organisation isn't an organisation. An association is not an association without its members, and without senior members, it has no direction either. So you can blame senior. There's a lot of senior members that go awry and go off on a tangent, and but half the time they're already warned about it, and they don't even heed the warnings. Other seniors see the warnings, they tell them, and they don't even bother to respond to them, and consequently big things happen, and then they end up trying to pick up the pieces afterwards. I mean, I was with an association. I was asked to be part of a professional association of kickboxing for many years. It was years ago.
That was a professional kickboxing association.
Yeah, it was. And it was, and basically, I was kind of, what do they call it when someone comes to watch you play football or watch you play a tune or something like that?
Headhunted.
I was headhunted. That's
there
it.
You go.
And the reason I was headhunted is because I was teaching in Scotland, Lao in Scotland, and this organisation had no clubs in Scotland, so I was headhunted, and would you be prepared to learn what we do? And this is an organisation that really, it wasn't fighting per se, it's more based on fitness, and it had a syllabus pertaining to kickboxing, but really there was barely any fighters in it. There were fighters, and there were some good fighters, but there was no real interest or stamina for every club to fight. It was based on the principle that you make a lot more money from fitness. Basically, you a lot more money from health and fitness, and that kind of activity, and punching pads and all that.
McDojo is a derogatory term these days, but it genuinely was like the McDonald's of kickboxing.
I guess you can, you may want to target it that way, but frankly, I was quite happy to do it. I knew the guy, and I was very happy to help him develop. And I was the only person, because of the fact I was in Scotland, and there's no way they would have gone up to Scotland to do any gradings. I became the only person in that association next to the principal to actually grade in students. So I graded everybody but the black belts. He still controlled the black belts, and so no one else knew it. It was kind of a well kept, undocumented secret that I would only be the only person grading. And anyway, cut a long story short, I did grade quite a few people, but in the end it never worked out in Scotland so well, because they were very pro Lao. They were very passionate about Lao, because I was, because all I ever did was just pump the BKFA, and so they decided, we'd rather do Lao and the kickboxing we're already doing and that sort of thing, because they were into fighting. And so I started doing it down south when I came. I was already living down south after coming back from Scotland, and so I built quite a lot of areas up in around the area of Hereford and Worcester and those sort of areas. And I got some good students, got people to black belt and that, and I even obviously had to learn this. Black belt. I had to go and learn the syllabus and pay a guy to teach me their syllabus.
Because
when I could see it, and you can imagine what I'm like, judging it and going, for God's sake. But the syllabus, there was no master of the style or anything like that. It was a kickboxing style. There was no master. The guy who actually ran it never even did the style. And basically, it was like taught by someone else from another organisation.
Just so everyone's following, you got headhunted by another organisation, not to do with Laogar, but at the same time, there was ties to Laogar.
Well, yeah, a lot of people have ties to Laogar.
Yeah. And you were put in a position whereby go and teach clubs in Scotland, but I will allow you to take the gradings of all the students up in Scotland, and nobody else in my organisation can do this, only you, Steve.
Yeah.
And so you agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, because he had to give me a financial deal that would be the same as what I would have with my own association. So anyway, consequently, I did build up clubs down south instead of Scotland, and had a lot of black belts. And then, without me knowing, this is what I'm talking about, organisations. Yeah. Without me knowing, he started talking to all those black belts and telling them, wait a minute, you can come directly to me, because his policy was, I don't want any chief instructors, because he'd already been stung a few times by chief instructors leaving him. And so he decided in his new organisation he would have no chief instructor, so he would be the only man.
He wants to retain the power. Yeah.
He retained the power direct to the students, so anyone who wanted to be an instructor was directly actually under him. Yeah. So of course, because all these students were down south, he was able to control them, he was able to coerce them and talk to them in the same way he did with me. Next thing you know, I didn't even get a phone call. You know, the next thing I know, these black belts were all going, oh, you've done this, you've done that, and the next thing I know, they were all gone. Yeah. And I'm going, wait a minute, something's not right here. Right. So I did call him. I found him several times. I found his wife. I found his son answered. His one son was great, and he answered and says, "Oh, I don't know what's going on, Steve. I'll find out for you." But I never, to this day, and we're talking like, I don't know, 2010 or something like that. I never saw or heard from him again, and nothing. And just all the students went, those few students thought, oh, we can get a better deal. Steve must have done this, must have done that. And of course, everybody was like, and of course, all their students went with them as well, in the same way, which I described earlier. Yeah. But the weird thing is, I mean, like I say, his one son who's run the business of it, he was a nice guy, and he didn't know what was going on, but I guess he was just told, this is what we're doing, and that's it.
Blacklist.
And then
Steve.
But I mean, it's like the one guy, one of his sons, Jesus Christ, he did a course with guns. I told you about that, didn't I?
Oh shit! Yeah.
Did a course with guns and said, what you got to do is grab the gun, grab the slide, and it stops the gun from working. I had to go to him at the end and says, piss off. Don't be so bloody stupid. The stopping a slide doesn't stop a bullet coming out. It fires anyway. The only thing a slide stops is it reloading. and by then you've let go, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Some of the things he taught was totally embarrassing. But I'm not mentioning any names or anything. People can work it out for themselves if they want, if they know me, but other people will never know.
Yeah. Well, the point is that you weren't never given an opportunity to present your case to these students because they'd fallen in love with the glitz and the glamour of this other guy who had effectively poached them.
That's exactly what they did. They were poached, and you would have thought the people who you teach would actually have more respect and more on them, more in them, to actually say, what's going on exactly. Such and such has told me this about you. So answer the accusations. I couldn't answer the accusations because I didn't know what the accusations were, and that goes with some of the clubs that have left me in the past. Because they were obviously integrated in the Kung Fu as well. They were Kung Fu students originally, so that of course they then took those as well, and completely kind of annihilated certain parts of the areas that I was developing. And eventually, of course, one of them was friendly with a guy in Scotland, and they were like chalk and cheese. Well, no, they were like together. So so of course he went with them, and I said, so what happened exactly? Oh, Steve, that's all they said, and I'm going, well, tell me, because I don't know exactly what I've done to deserve what you have done to me, and I'd love to know. And anyway, consequently, of course, I lost my house, and I end up in Scotland. In where am I now?
Canada.
So up yours.
Yes. Well,
because rather than lie down and take it, I just got up and said, right, I'm just going to have to do something about it.
But I mean, from my point of view, if we just look at your role in proliferating Laugar, I mean, with all due respect to a lot of other people, but you've really paid your dues in terms of doing that. I mean, when you went to Scotland, you effectively, let's say doubled the size of the organisation. But do you know what I mean? We had an awful lot of people. Let's put it that way. It may not have doubled the organisation, but it did. It certainly, there's an awful lot. Yeah. Oh Christ, yeah. But
well, why do you think I got Guardian of the Year in 2003? No one's ever had one. Because I did more gradings. Yeah. I did more gradings than anyone else in the association put together. I sold more licenses than anyone else in the association put together, and I basically got the Guardian of the Year for that. And but there not that many. There's not that many professional instructors that would. Give everything up, move their family and everything to try to
that's the one thing about
Laugar.
you, Steve. No matter what most people put their family and their kids first, but you've kind of put the kung fu first.
You come in with me and that's it.
Yeah.
We're doing this. We're doing that.
Amazing.
And we're still together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. 28 years, you don't get murder for that. You don't get bloody that for murder, I should say. No. You don't get 28 years for murder, do you? That's not fair. No, bless her.
Yeah.
Love her.
Yeah. No, incredible. Yeah. Real patience.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
The Dalai Lama, that woman.
Absolutely, yeah. And but the thing is, when all that kind of thing was happening, she was really supportive by saying, "Told you so." That's how she was. Told you so. Why are you doing this?
Do you ever feel, in terms of the way things turned out? Obviously, you're in Canada and everything's fine now. But do you ever feel sad for what might have been? And do you ever think there's something you could have done? Like you would have restructured your way of thinking, or your business.
Oh well, no, I structured it badly in the first place because I never had money on my mind, and that's why I shared it, and that's the problem. I shared everything.
Well, this is true. I mean, if you were the baddie, you'd have gone away with all the money, right?
Well, if I was a baddie, they'd have seen me driving a Porsche, wouldn't they?
No, that's true.
If I was, did you ever see me driving a posh car? My car was always at least 10 years old, and still is. I still have got a 10-year-old car. And so it's like I bought 2 new cars in my life. One was a Metro, and one was a Renault 5, with both of them little tiny cars. Yeah. And by the time I sold the Renault in Scotland, I bought that in Scotland. After a year, it had done 50,000 miles, and I couldn't get anything for it. So, and we had 4 kids. What were we going to do in a Metro? They were stuck in the boot, 2 of them. So, but no, I never had a new car. So if I was into the money, if I was making a mint off it for myself, A, I would have paid my mortgage off, and B, I would have had a very nice car. So, and I would have had nice holidays and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So that was basically that's kind of a kind of
that was quite personal, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've been a bit personal today. It's quite a. Maybe we should entitle this "About Me." It's all about me.
Well,
no, it's what would I have done previously? I don't know what I would have done. I've obviously would have considered the finance and the business organisation of it better. But I feel sadly, I always look back and think, so I'm saddened by the way the students would have had to change everything and start learning different things. And how would they have been coerced to do that? It's easy, like I say, it's easy to coerce students into believing, something's, grass is always greener kind of thing.
Yeah.
And obviously I must have made mistakes, and obviously I must have, knocked someone's nose out of joint. I understand that happens all the time. People knock my nose out of the joint. Look at the size of it. So it's kind of but yeah, I feel sad for students, and particularly when the instructors that sort of followed suit, or the avid instructors that followed suit, hadn't got a clue of what they were doing, and then the students follow them. And one of them went, and so I was told through the grapevine, well, this girl didn't like you because you wouldn't let her take her grading, and she wasn't ready, and because she wasn't ready for a grading, until she's ready for it, she won't take it, as far as I'm concerned. So I wanted to have some quality, and she wasn't an old woman; she was a very young girl, and so consequently, the guy that sort of ran off with the students, the club, if you like, he says, "Oh yeah, I'll let you take gradings." And of course, the principal who coerced him into doing that, take their gradings, no problem, give them black belts, and then they're all happy. And so it's a very simple thing to do if you want to coerce people. Oh yeah, you'll get a black belt.
Right.
And if they have no knowledge of their own capability, because they won't have, because of the way they were taught by this person, then they're not going to know any different, and not until they go to another organisation and get their ass kicked. When they go to another club and start getting ripped apart syllabus wise or technically wise, they won't know. And isn't this the problem with so many other martial arts as well? Not just about what's happened to me in the past, but what has happened to so many other groups and parts of the BKFA and parts of other groups. So it's a sad affair, but all I can say is the one thing that I want to see is good traditional martial arts be sustained until one day at least they can come out the ground and sort of take over the world again, because it is such a sad thing to see so much history and science allocated to kind of the back stalls kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get,
but that's what I'm about, really. That's all I'm about.
But it's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, you are about that, and I know it. I know it as sure as I,
live and breathe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you look at, I mean, let's face it. We are. How shall we put it? We're
a dying breed, I'd say.
Yeah. Oh, I'd say. I'd certainly say that. I mean, your thought process, and sort of by de facto my thought process, because I've obviously learned from you a lot. It's very much we believe in the meat and potatoes of the style, and all the rest of it. But and that sort of attitude does not travel well. Okay, do you know what I mean? Because
no, I know.
It's like we're almost like a black sheep of a podcast.
Well, we are. We are
know?
Black sheep. I mean, it's like we're getting people now. Quite a few people are now sending us videos or sending texts and saying or emails or whatever and saying, "Oh, so what do you say about this technique or that technique?" And then because I'm useless at writing, I tend to just get my daughter to hold the video camera or my phone, and then I just explain something on the phone, then send it. And I don't. I'm not making any money off it. It's just I love to teach people. I love to hopefully help people, and of course, if I'm doing something that they wouldn't agree with, all they've got to do is just get back on that emails and say, I don't agree with that, because then we can create a good argument for it or against it, and if they can convince me that it doesn't work. Or that it doesn't exist in that part of the syllabus or whatever, which that wouldn't matter, then they can tell me, because all I'm about is learning and teaching. That's all I'm about.
Totally. But I don't think enough people realise what we're trying to do with this podcast. I think that they think that we're going off on a tangent or whatever. Well, of course we do.
Well, we do.
Well, we do. Let's face it. But our heart, is firmly, Laugar. I mean, that's what we're here for.
You've already said it once, well, several times, James. People see me as the black sheep because I do have a mouth and I do say what I need to say, and people don't like it, and I don't necessarily show respect to people who don't deserve it. I don't like the idea of people just taking a grade because they can afford it. I don't like people being guardians just because they can, work I don't know, paint or take pictures or do advertising or whatever. That's not the reason people should become guardians. Guardians should be people who, yes, they're devoted to the style, and I understand that. That's great, but my attitude, and I am being candidly honest. We're going to get banned.
Well, whatever. It wouldn't be the first time, old man.
Well, for me,
maybe we should just post a few wushu pics up and get loads of likes.
God,
increase our stake.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, look, my attitude is, if I can speak candidly, right, and if people want to say, oh, we don't want to hear that, that's not fair, if you can't accept criticism, then the criticism won't be under your control, it'll be under my control. So basically I'll just go, okay, you don't want to hear the criticism, I'll just put it out on other everywhere else, and that's the way it is. But right now I just want to give criticism, constructive criticism. I don't want to. I'm not dissing anyone. I'm not saying, I don't like this person or that. But that's not fair. I don't dislike anyone. I just disagree with people sometimes.
Yeah.
And my attitude is, everybody can have an argument and then go for a drink together. That's the way it is. It's not like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be doing this. The only people I disagree with are people that don't give you the opportunity to answer your accusers. They don't give you an opportunity to answer the accusations that have been thrown up, out there. And that is one of the biggest regrets, of course, of having, with that organisation I was talking about earlier, and then other things that have happened to me previously. When you don't have the opportunity to find out exactly what was said and what you're supposed to have, or what was implied. And then, so that's what I don't like. That's the only thing I don't like. I don't like cowards. I don't like people who hide behind, bullshit. I don't like people who hide behind, kind of their position.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Or their supposed position, and then go, well, Steve. We left because of well, tell me why. One of the guy in Scotland, when he left me, he saw me at the Nationals. He came to the Nationals and asked me to come for a cup of tea, and of course I did. I'm not a crazy individual. I like a good free cup of tea. So I went to him and he says, I'm really sorry what happened. I really don't know why I did this. I don't know what happened. Blah, blah, blah. And then in the next breath he says, oh, would you come and do a course for me?
There you go.
Jesus H. Christ. He's just taken pretty much most of Scotland, okay, and made me redundant in that sense, coerced all the students, and then he goes, will you come and do a course for me? I'm going, what are you on? I just could not believe. And then years later he writes an email saying how great I was and how brilliant a instructor I was, and I taught him everything, right? And I just sent him a letter back, an email back, that just told him, look, you betrayed me, you're full of shit, and that's, I don't want to know. So then I saw him, he got an award or something, and he said, I'd like to thank all my instructors. And you comment with all these instructors he's just met that have done things. And guess what? I wasn't even mentioned, even though he was with me for 15 years.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so hilarious how the human mind thinks, how the way people
the human
think.
condition. Yeah.
Yes, the human condition. It's amazing. But we have been a little personal today. I think it's been terrible.
I think it's because we're so passionate about Laogar, and we want to see the best for the style. I mean, that's the.
We want to see the best for the association, the best for the style. We want to see the best for the students.
We do.
And we want to hopefully get students to ask as many questions as they possibly can.
Yeah.
We want to shake things up and say, "Come on, guys, let's build. Let's make this association great again."
And who's going to build it? Let's go.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is, James, Trump never got that. He didn't make that saying up. Let's make America great again.
No,
Ronald Reagan said it.
I know it was
yes.
Reagan. Because I follow American politics.
He makes it up all the time. He's just
don't
start me on Trump.
I'm not. This isn't political in that sense.
No. It seems political, by the way.
It does. Yeah,
but
very.
No, it's passion. It's about love.
Yeah.
It's about love, passion, and romance. Or bromance.
Do you think that we might be able to round off this podcast by talking about something like technical and martial art related?
Haven't we done? Have we not done anything?
We've frittered on about things. We've had a therapy session, So
yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you. I really want to. Thank you for being my therapist at this time. And
talk. I want to talk now.
Go on.
Be quiet now. You got to ask my questions. I want to talk about the stick because we said we were going to do it at the start, and if anyone's still hanging on at this point, they've probably switched us off by now. But
we did talk about the stick initially.
Yeah, we did.
Well, we talked about how it's portrayed.
If you can we just start from the bare bones? How many different types of sticks do we have in Laogar, and what are they used for? And give me some of the characteristics and we'll start from there.
There's only two sticks really, and that's the rat tail pole. It's called a rat tail pole because it's thin at one end and thicker at the other. It's basically used. One end is used more than with very rare use of the other.
Yeah.
So the smaller end is used to do the striking. It's about 7 feet long. Some styles have it at 9 feet long. It totally depends on the style.
Yeah.
And then the other one is called a double-headed pole, or a rat tail. Sorry, not a rat tail, a eyebrow pole.
Would we ever consider, even though the spear has got a sharp, pointy thing at the end, would that ever be sort of classed in the same sort of bracket as the sticks? No. No. That's a much more versatile weapon. It's called the king of the weapons, the spear. And the spear basically is because it's flexible, it's sharp, and it's long. So it has all the attributes of a lot of other weapons put together. So, and it's the main weapon of if you're an infantryman in the Chinese army in the early centuries. And if you think about it, every single army that has ever existed up until the invention of the gun or the invention of the better gun has had a lance or a spear. Yeah.
Right. Every single cavalry and soldiers have all carried spears.
What did you say? The king of the weapons, didn't you?
King of the weapons,
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. Go on.
I was just going to say, sorry. They always have a saying about if you can imagine a market trader trying to sell a spear, and he's trying to sell a shield as well, a cane shield, because that's a weapon, not just a shield.
Yeah.
And you can imagine Massio used to always tell this story, the market trader, you want to buy a spear, right? It's long, it's flexible, it'll whip over the top of the shield and be able to cut the man behind it because it's so flexible and so whippy, and it's got a lovely blade, etc., and you can use both ends, of course. And then you say, well, actually, I'd like to buy a shield, and of course the guy says, well, a shield can defend everything, and stop this doing that, and stop this doing, and can strike with it, and so on. So you can imagine, you can make use or make the better judgment of any weapon if you want.
Yeah.
So totally depends on what your build is
Yeah.
and what your preference is to what kind of weapon is the king for you.
Yes.
Okay,
No, I
because
understand.
some people prefer the single bladed sword, the Dao, Dan Dao, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's got a nice big wide blade and curved blades. It's a hacking kind of weapon, although it has got a bit of a point. And then, but of course, you've got this long Jin, the double-bladed sword, but that tends to be more for people with money.
I was going to say, because Laugar is, well, it's not an upper class style, is it?
If you go out, you have to go out and kill tigers for a living, and then
there you go.
and you're an underdog, and you're part of a sect, and you're part of an underground revolutionary group. I don't think it's probably going to be for the the affluent.
No, it's interesting that the when you say underground, it's Laugar gangster.
Gangster. Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what they were, weren't they? They were revolutionaries.
Yeah,
they were originally revolutionaries and had nothing to do with crime, but later on...
You're scratching again.
I'm sorry, I'm messing about with the table. Later on, they became more devout to looking after themselves and making their own income.
Yeah.
So, yes, they did become, little groups.
Right. So,
untoward.
Do you reckon, Master Yao had any dealings with the old gangsters?
No, I don't think so.
Go on.
I wouldn't know. What are you trying to
put a
get me
hit
to
out
say?
on me. He might put a hit out on us for this. No, I'm only kidding.
No, it's nothing to do with him.
Yeah.
In fact, his grandfather closed his school because he found out that one of his relatives or one of his young, I don't know whether it was a cousin of Master Yao or something like that, was doing a little bit of dirty trickery. So, he just didn't want anything to do with that. So he was very up. I mean, his granddad was quite affluent, quite well known, very famous in Hong Kong. One of the top 5 masters in Hong Kong at the time. So very, very affluent family, very well off as well at the time.
When we talk about weapons and that, is there a sort of escalation of learning weapons? I mean, obviously we know from the syllabus we start with the eyebrow pole first, and then we move on to the sword, and etc. But is there a fixed sort of way you should progress through the weapons, or?
Well, there isn't a fixed one as far as the style is concerned. Possibly the way that it's devised is the quality of learning required, or like the heavy weapons are a bit later, so they do take a little bit. But it's kind of seems to me, I mean, this is only my opinion, by the way, I'm not trying to change the syllabus in any shape or form, but for me, if you want my opinion, I would have thought the heavy weapons would have been better to teach first, because by the time you get to my age, doing the heavy weapons is a lot more cumbersome, a lot more harder to do. Although, having said that, the techniques and the moves will be slower because of the weight of the weapon. So you can look at it in two ways, if you like.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I mean, and a lot of the time, small people won't be asked to do the heavier weapons because they just won't be able to wield them.
Yeah.
So they would tend to do something else instead. So it isn't the syllabus with weaponry isn't set in stone. You see.
Yeah.
You choose weapons by your weight, and you shouldn't be forced, and I don't think you are forced to perform them like that. And of course, nowadays you can get heavy weapons as light as pie anyway, so you can still do the techniques, but you're just not really doing the techniques because it wouldn't work with a light weapon.
Yeah. Why is it in Lao we have the weapons we have? Is that due to the fact that Master Yao, that's pretty much what he trained and brought over? I mean, obviously I'm answering my own question, but what I'm saying is, look at for example, Choi Leaffoot and whatnot. They've got bloody hook swords, they've got this, they've got that, they've got earth, wind and fire wheels, whatever they're called. They got so many weapons.
Yeah, but those weapons, I mean, Master Yao would have practiced those too. I've seen pictures with him with the hooked swords and so on, half moon swords, axes, if you like. And there's there's a lot of weaponry that he wouldn't have bothered with, and I think he just kept it to the traditional weapons that the Shaolin would have maintained.
Well, they wouldn't have.
I mean, there are lots
butterfly
of weapons.
knives, would they?
Well, butterfly knives were a later, I would imagine, a later addition in the style, simply because, again, because of the revolutionaries. Something you can hide.
Yeah.
And
But mind you,
walk
didn't
down the
they have
street.
those? Didn't they have like twin swords back in? Back way.
Yeah, a lot of styles do practice twin, full length swords.
Yeah.
Loving couple swords.
Yeah, loving couple swords. So they were a bigger blade than a butterfly knife, but it kind of didn't they share the same scabbard, so it looked like you were still carrying one.
Same as butterfly knives do.
Yeah.
But butterfly knives might you don't necessarily have to have a scabbard. It's just, it depends on how you carry them, and I would imagine that anyone wearing, I did hear this thing. What was it? Someone Wing Chun talking about someone holding butterfly knives, and he said before they go out, these gangs before they go out, they take the butterfly knives to their hands.
Yeah.
Well, bit of a problem there.
Well, man, you can't drop them.
Well, that's. I think that's what they were sort of suggesting, that once they start throwing them around, they can't drop them. But the thing is,
they watched Johnny Depp in Edward Scissorhands and got ideas to swap.
Well, the point I need to make right now is, unless you're carrying a roll of tape with you to the battlefield, you're going to have to walk down the street with these swords in your hands. Well, okay, maybe you could in medieval times, but do you know what I mean? They see you coming. Okay.
Yeah, you got to be already in the fight.
More of a secretive weapon because they're shorter, and you can have them under your armpit, you can have them up your sleeve or whatever, depending on the type of clothing you wear and the type of butterfly knives you've got. And of course they are kind of more of a, drop it out your sleeve and slice the throat as you go past them. So they're not kind of meant necessarily to be, serviceable military weapons. That's not what they were designed to be. No. They're just simply hacking, blades. Yeah. And if you can't afford them, then you just use a hatchet, and that's why you hear of the term the hatchet man, because the hatchet man would have the hatchet up his sleeve, and then as he got closer to you, he would just let it slide down to his hand without you knowing. And then as he got close enough to you to hit you, he would then whack and you're dead. Yeah. And that's why they call hitmen like the hatchet man.
Yeah. What's your favourite weapon?
I like the Quan.
You like the Quan,
best.
Do you?
Yeah, I like the eyebrow top pole.
Okay.
The best, I think. Okay. I like Deutschat. That's my favourite form, Deutschat, and I like the way that people can, devise other weapons with it using Deutschat. It's very easy to remember. If you're doing a demo and you want to learn a new weapon or put two different weapons together, then use the meat, meat and veg of Deutschat. Put it all together with the moves of Deutschat, and then you can remember it quite easily.
Well, you don't have to learn another set, do you?
You don't have to learn another set now. But the way that we learn Deutschat is just constant repetition. And I don't just mean do the set, stop and start again. I mean do one direction, then back the other way, 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 constantly until you're knackered.
Yeah.
And then you start to devise a fluidity in it, and then sometimes someone's going to make a mistake and you'll automatically respond to the mistake, which is why that's how you should practice.
Yeah.
So
I always thought that the sword was your favourite because you're just so prolific with it. You really do enjoy swords, like you collected them.
I collect swords. I did collect swords. I had to get rid of a lot of them to come to Canada. I didn't have to get rid of them by law, but it just was so difficult. And I would have had to name them all, and then they would have had to open all the luggage and all that all the packing and everything. So I just thought, no, I needed money to get over here as well. So we sold everything in order. Well, I thought we'd sold everything, and then when the thing arrived, even bloody pens were wrapped in paper. It was just ridiculous. And the wife just, obviously, the family where I left over there when I came over to recce this place. Yeah. They were left to sort of, try to do it themselves and didn't particularly get rid of enough stuff,
Yeah.
except when she got over, my sword didn't come. My Chinese sword, the sharp one,
Yeah.
that never came. So I've got that. I've got two old swords. I've got a claymore and a sword from your regiment, a rifle regiment,
Rifles,
from 1846 or something.
Yeah.
1943, I can't remember pattern. Those are nice swords.
Yeah.
But I can't do kung fu with them very easily. I used to do kung fu with a Russian sword.
It didn't have a handguard, did it?
No, it didn't have a
I know
handguard, but
the
it had a
one.
lovely long blade.
Yeah.
I got a picture of me in one thing.
Yeah, it kind of looks a bit like a machete, just a bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the one. You
I've forgotten the name of it. It's a Russian name, obviously. I've
Yeah.
bloody forgotten the name of it. It was
Yeah.
pre-revolution, and it had a bayonet as well in the scabbard.
Oh, okay.
And so I bought the bayonet separately, and a Russian bayonet.
Yeah.
So I had that as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, it's great. It's a wonderful thing doing weaponry, isn't it? It's like
I do enjoy the weaponry. It's very important to keep hold of it. It is a traditional thing. That's the one thing about Chinese martial arts that I'd keep traditional is the weaponry, sustain the weaponry. But of course, the techniques are traditional as well. They're very scientifically. They're already proven. No one has to turn around and dispute them because they've been there for thousands of years. Just because you don't like doing traditional martial arts doesn't mean to say it doesn't work. And just because people can't do it to make it work doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's just the science works.
Do you know what a good example of that is? It's like if you look at Jackie Chan, right?
Yeah.
And he'll take anything like a bloody chair or a ladder or a shopping trolley and use it in a martial way in a film.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you can see the principles of weaponry in that. And it's
absolutely brilliant advocate of traditionalism.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But done in a modern way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so it brings it to the fore how it can be used. How it can be. He's not just standing there just punching at each other.
No.
He does a lot of stuff. A lot of his stuff is about defence, isn't it? He's always about evasion.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about him. These big guys come out and start attacking him, and he's just evasion.
Oh yeah.
And then a punch the lights out, sweep them.
Yeah.
Everything. It's really good.
Yeah.
And usually it's a weapon that knocks them out, and not necessarily him punching them out.
Yeah.
He punches them a few times and then ends up like sticking some kind of like a tire over their shoulders,
or
or
opening
something.
a fridge in their face.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's the kind of thing. Yeah. So I do like that. I love Jackie Chan. I think he's a great advocate for that. I like his more modern movies.
Yeah.
So Rush Hour and stuff like that. I like those kind of things.
Oh yeah.
Very much.
Well, I tell you what, we'll call it a day on this, but we really want to talk about some more weapons in the next one coming.
Oh, for sure, yeah. We'll individual the weapons.
Yeah, okay, all right. So
individualize the weapons as we talk.
I tried to do that
listen out for
tonight, but we kind of drifted off, didn't we? I wanted to
you can call this one, me. It's all about me. An introduction to me.
Oh, okay. Then.
Introducing Steve Newby as his former self.
The artist formerly known as.
Yeah, and if people look on YouTube and they're not interested in martial arts, they can look if I put things on Steve Newby Englishman or Englishman Steve Newby. That's what it is, Englishman Steve Newby, and it's just got me driving a semi like a 8,000. What is it? 88,000 pound truck or something like that. Yeah. That's not the cost. That's the weight. Yeah. Something like that. Anyway, big trucks over the Coca-Cola. The what's that known as? It's bloody Highway to Hell.
There you go. ACDC.
Highway Highway Through Hell. It's called the Coca-Cola, and they gave me the job in the middle of bloody winter when it was dark, and it wasn't until the spring the light changed, and I started seeing all the bloody cliffs and thinking, crap,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's the first time for anyone who's interested in trucks, and I know they're not, that I ever did 94 miles an hour in a truck, because there's no limitations here. In Britain they're limited to 55, and when I got in a truck here and I went downhill 18 miles downhill, 94 miles an hour. The strongest muscle in my body is my sphincter.
50p, 20p, 50p, 20p. That's it. Were we listening to Meatloaf at the time? That's it.
No. Oh, that was the speed camera. Wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh my god.
Both my hands out the sunroof driving through, screaming my head off to it. Yeah. Luckily, I was going the opposite direction against the camera, so they must have that in the police station. A big framed picture of me driving through in a black BMW with my hands raised up in the air.
Oh, brilliant!
I've just given myself away now. I've just criminalised myself.
You have. Right, guys. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of the Kung Fu Podcast. Hopefully, normal service will be resumed next week. And we heartily apologise. Anyway. Take it easy. It's goodbye from me, James Still. And guys, don't forget, do us a favour, just go onto our Facebook, give us a like us on Podbean, like us on YouTube, follow us, all the rest of that stuff. We really would appreciate it. And obviously, if you've got questions, guys, send them in. We're all about questions, we're all about debate. We would really relish that. Anyway, right.
And apologise to anybody who would have been offended by the things I've said. Okay. Except for the people who did them.
Hey, never apologise. You never apologise. Do you have to apologise?
I have to apologise everywhere I go.
Right, guys. Thanks again for joining us. Take care of yourselves. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Kick your little Beijing ass right now, man. I ain't scared of you. I know you know that little tricky shit. Come on.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So until next time, take care of yourselves and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Guns. Now why doesn't somebody pull off 45 and bang, settle it? No guns.